What the fuck is going on, YouTube? Today we will be looking at one of the largest and certainly most well-funded conservatives on the internet, one Benjamin Aaron Shapiro. A couple of days ago, Benny Boy uploaded a hit piece on Whoopi Goldberg, attacking her for daring to say Donald Trump should suck it up and accept the results of the election. Now, I don't know too much about Whoopi Goldberg or her politics, but I grew up watching some of her shows and movies, and I like Whoopi. And the idea that Donald Trump should suck it up and accept the results of the election, I find extremely defensible. So after watching Shapiro's video and noticing that at no point does he deal with the substance of what she was saying, instead actually attacking her for things that have nothing to do with her argument, I felt like throwing my 2 cents in. So let's get into it.
Then we get Whoopi Goldberg, the specter of Whoopi Goldberg, saying that we have to suck it up. You know, we sucked it up when Trump won. In what way did Democrats suck it up when Trump won? We got 4 long years of you whining that Trump wasn't the actual president of the United States. Hashtag not my president. The Women's March in the immediate aftermath of Trump winning. We got huge Black Lives Matter protests throughout the summer. The idea being that Trump was the font head of systemic American racism. We got the media and their collusion narrative that went on for years on end despite lack of evidence. We got an impeachment. At what point did Democrats actually come to terms with the fact that Trump had won? They never came to terms.
Yes, it is absolutely true that a lot of the American public was pretty unhappy about Trump being their president, and we saw things like the Women's March. But I'd like to point out, Black Lives Matter started under Obama. It was a response to police brutality, not to Trump specifically. And as far as the whole Russiagate thing, yes, Russia did, in fact, attempt to interfere in our election. I do not believe it is a reason Trump was elected, but they did some fuckery.
And I gotta say, there is a pretty big difference between Hillary supporters starting some innocuous hashtag or wearing a pussy hat to some march, and the Republican Party and its base claiming that Trump actually won the election when he in fact did not. All in an attempt to usurp the will of the American people and our democracy. Not to mention Trump supporters showing up with AR-15s to polling locations, or calling in death threats, all because they dared to actually count the votes. The behavior of the Republican Party and its members is becoming borderline seditious at this point. So to do this false equivalence to say that Hillary supporters doing some hashtag is the same as the Republicans spurging out and threatening violence, or trying to override the will of most Americans' votes, is insane to me.
Which is why they're so celebratory now, because they think that now reality has snapped back into place. But spare me, really, all of this stuff is just, ugh. All these people who are unwilling to accept the results of election now going, you know, you guys, you got to grow up. I'm not willing to hear that from you. I'm sorry, Whoopi Goldberg. I think you have, I think you literally have no leg to stand on here. This is, well, not literally. I assume you have legs, but you have no leg to stand on here.
Okay, this is nothing but an ad hom, but I just gotta stop and say, watching this dude speak is very off-putting. From his creepy little mannerisms to his goblin demon face, I really can't understand how this dude has managed to attract the large following that he has. But anyway, let's stop and watch what Whoopi actually had to say.
Here's Whoopi Goldberg.
When you know who was elected 4 years ago, you know, Hillary Clinton didn't say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right, stop the count. She didn't say, this isn't right, I'm not going for it. She didn't say any of that. So all of you, suck it up. Suck it up like we sucked it up. And if you are not sure that you're comfortable with Joe Biden, do what we did. Find things and then take it to the law. And if the law says it's something to look at it. But from now on, suck it up.
Whoopi is clearly talking about the candidates here. When Hillary lost in 2016, she conceded graciously. And now that Trump is lost in 2020, he is threatening to stay in office despite the will of the voters. And he is threatening the very fabric of our democracy. Her point was very well made and very simple to understand, and instead of addressing it, Shapiro goes on this long tirade about the Democrats this and BLM that and the Women's March, things that have absolutely nothing to do with the substance of what she was saying. And of course, he has to do this, because if he were to interact with her actual point, he wouldn't be able to contend with it.
Literally what is happening right now. People are literally going to the courts. They're literally filing affidavits. Okay, so in the meantime, Attorney General William Barr, he has put out a memo to assistant U.S. attorneys all over the United States, telling them that if they see credible evidence of election fraud, then they should investigate it. This is being taken by the media as a sign that William Barr has militarized on behalf of the Trump campaign. Literally changed an illegal standard. Okay, so the headlines are, William Barr initiates investigations, and the media are like, yeah, but we don't see any evidence of serious widespread voter fraud. That's not what the letter says. So here's what William Barr's letter actually says. He's the Attorney General. Here's what he actually says. And by the way, people are saying that this is him, basically trying to please Donald Trump, that this whole thing is about him trying to appease Donald Trump because Donald Trump doesn't want to accept that he lost the election or something. What if the reason that William Barr is doing this, here's a possible take. What if the reason William Barr is doing this is because, number one, there may actually be credible allegations of voter fraud out there that are worth investigating, and two, if there are not, it is good for the DOJ to be on record saying that they were investigating those things so people feel more safe and secure after the election is over.
Again, for a hit piece on Whoopi Goldberg, there isn't a lot of refuting what she actually said. I can't really speak to William Barr and his motivations, but Trump supporters are squawking that Dems are trying to steal the election and that there is voter fraud and widespread tampering with the election. But mark my words, almost none of these claims will be substantiated or have any validity behind them. It is a typical tactic of conservatives to make a spurious claim that muddies the water and casts doubt. Other conservatives will see this doubt and then use it as justification to believe whatever nonsense they wanted to in the first place.
Did it ever occur to anybody that the reason this process exists is so that when the election is over, people at least are able to point to the court cases and to the investigations and say they came up empty? Right? It turns out that the Mueller investigation, it was bad and it was badly predicated, but the Mueller investigation did justify Trump's claims that there was no collusion. Made it very difficult for Democrats to claim there was collusion. Well, after this election, let's say that the DOJ comes up with no serious allegations of widespread voter fraud. It's going to be a lot easier for people to point to that and say, okay, there was no widespread voter fraud that decided the election. The purpose of the process is not to come to a preset end. The purpose of the process is to ensure the integrity of the elections.
Again, no one actually thinks that Donald Trump literally met with Vladimir Putin in a smoke-filled room to win the 2016 election. But this idea that the Mueller report found absolutely nothing is false. The investigation produced 37 indictments, 7 convictions, and a lot of compelling evidence that the president obstructed justice on multiple occasions. And when it comes to the subject of voter fraud in the 2020 election, this idea that after the investigations produce nothing, that Trump supporters are just going to let it go and stop squawking that there was voter fraud is also false. This narrative will never end. We will be hearing it for the next 4 years. Even though the Democrats won in a fair and legitimate way, we will always constantly be hearing how they stole the election.
Going back to Shapiro's criticism of Whoopi, it's very telling that he couldn't dispute what she actually said, instead spurging out and talking in vague generalities about the Democrats. What she was actually talking about was the behavior and character of the two candidates. In 2016, Hillary conceded graciously, and Trump is currently refusing to concede and acting like a petulant child. And it's not just that Trump is refusing to leave office. From Twitter and through the news, he is also doing everything he can to rile up his base and cause an even greater rift between the American public. We are more divided than ever before, not just because of people like Trump, but because of people like Ben Shapiro, who do everything they can to shill for the establishment. Anyway, I'm pretty new at this, but the quality will improve, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time.